So my daughter was born while we were living in Nairobi, Kenya. And when she was 4 months old, we decided, well, my husband had to take a trip for work to Somaliland. And instead of hacking it on my own in Nairobi, he said, just fly home to Lancaster. Just introduce Riel to your family and friends at home. So I booked a flight to Philadelphia. And I was really nervous about traveling alone with a 4-month-old on the 20-hour trip. But it went really, really well on the way there. And so I had no worries for the way back. And we got to the airport in Philadelphia for my return trip. And when I entered the airport, the place was packed, totally filled with people. And I'm sure you've seen what this looks like. But I learned that a thunderstorm had grounded all inbound and outbound flights for about an hour, so everything was totally backed up. And the lady at the desk said, hey, listen, you're gonna miss your connecting flight in Brussels, but we can get you on a flight to Paris. It's leaving very soon, and it will take you to Nairobi. You'll transfer in Paris. And I thought, this is so great. I will get to Nairobi sooner than I would have with my other flight. So we got on our flight to Paris, and we taxied on the runway, and we taxied, and we taxied, and we taxied, and we stopped. And the pilot came on the intercom and says, oh, we are experiencing technical difficulties. You know those announcements. And 3 hours later, we did take off. But by this point, I was definitely missing my connecting flight in Paris. Don't forget, I have my 4-month-old with me this whole time, okay? So we land in Paris the next morning, 7.5-hour flight. And yes, I have indeed missed my connecting flight. So at the desk in Paris, the woman types on her computer for no less than 45 minutes and hands me a printout about 5 feet long, full of gobbledygook that I don't even understand. She says, this is explaining everything that happened, and it's your ticket to get on your next flight. There's nothing going out today until tonight, like at 9 p.m. And so here's your vouchers for lunch, and see ya. So I find my way to a restaurant, and I sit down to eat, and I order some food. My 4-month-old is sleeping on the bench beside me, finally. And the waitress comes, brings my food, and says, ma'am, we have found some unattended luggage outside the restaurant, and so we need to evacuate this section of the airport. Okay. And so I hike up all of my stuff, and I get out of the airport. 4 hours later, we're allowed back into that section of the airport. I sit down to my cold food, and I eat it. And I decide I am going to go sit at the gate for my next flight at 9 p.m., and I'm not going to let it out of my sight because something else is going to happen. By about hour 28, I am talking to my daughter as if she is a real person. I mean, she is a real person, but like she is coherent and able to understand me. Honey, we are not going to live in an airport. We are not going to live here forever, okay? I know that happened in the movie Terminal, and I know that was a true story, but we come from a government that is fully functioning, and I have a passport, and we have people who know we are here. We're going to see Daddy. So the moment the gate opens, I line up, and a smartly dressed man behind the counter looks at my paper, my 5-foot-long piece of paper with gobbledygook, and he types on his computer. He looks at the paper. Ma'am, you have a reservation for this flight, but you do not have a ticket.
What?
That's what I said. And I tried to explain to him. I said, the paper says everything. She said it would say everything. And he shrugged his shoulders and he said, well, there's the phones. You have to call your airline. So I hiked myself over to the phones, and they have 50 different languages on them, none of them being Spanish or English, which I could comprehend. And I turn around and I see this big sign in bright orange that says information. Means the same in French and English, I guess. And so this is like my savior. So I walk over to the desk, and this lovely lady behind the desk, I explain my whole situation and show her my 5-foot-long piece of paper with gobbledygook that I don't even understand. And she looks at me and listens intently, and she says, why are you here? This is airport information. I cannot book a flight. I don't know anything about flights. If you need information about an airport, about the airport, I can give it to you. I cannot help you. Okay, so thanking the woman who so nicely played into my stereotype of French people, I hefted my diaper bag and my personal item and my carry-on and my stroller and my 4-month-old, and we hiked it across the airport to find the United Airlines office closed for the day. We spend the next 2 hours running from office to office to office to try to find somebody who can help me, and finally I end up at the Brussels Airlines office, and the kind man behind the desk says, "You sit down." And he types on his computer for 45 minutes. He looks at my 5-foot-long sheet of paper with gobbledygook full of things I don't understand, and he types some more. And he comes to me and he says, "Well, there are no more flights to Nairobi tonight. There are no more flights tomorrow, but I can get you on a flight tomorrow morning to Zurich, Switzerland. It leaves at 4:45 in the morning. You're going to fly to Zurich. It's a short layover, so you're going to have to be quick. And you can get on a flight in Zurich to Nairobi. Here's a voucher for dinner. You're going to take this tram to this hotel, and you can take this tram back to the airport and check in." So that's what we did. And when I finally sat down on that Swiss Air flight in Zurich, I decided that if this plane actually landed in Nairobi, I never wanted to see another voucher for food again.
Good job.
Thank you.
Very nice.